In this video recording, this Adobe CS6 Intro to Pattern tool, we're going to create some leaves with flowers. We're going to use the pattern tool to rotate it. We'll do a single repeat and in repeat, and we'll have color chips with codes. Our in repeat will be reduced 50%, and we're going to set it to a specific cylinder height. So we start out with our pen tool, and we have black only in the stroke, and I'm doing this total freehand. Now you can scan in a sketch of yours and you can kind of trace over a sketch, or you could take a picture of some leaves and a little couple of blossoms and you can trace over that. So I'm just doing it just completely random and making some random shapes, and I'm doing it fast too because I don't want this video to last too long. So I'm making these little leaf shapes first. Little sticks, little leaves. I'm working with the mouse. I don't have the pen tool. So I'm getting to the end now. Okay, now I'll take my smooth tool and I'll smooth around some of the shapes to make them look a little more leaf-like and a little more organic. Now you have to be careful with that smooth tool that you only go over the points that you want. Now some of the points, convert point tool I use, I use the white arrow to move specific points, and then I use that little convert point tool to convert a curve point into a straight point, and that's what you see me doing now. I'm making some straight points on the ends of the leaves. Okay, then I'm doing a little more smoothing, and I'm not being too particular because I'm trying to rush for the video. Okay, so once I get this little sprig to where I want it, then I'm going to start working on the flower. I'm almost there with this little sprig here, this twig with leaves on it. Okay, now I'm starting on a little flower. I was just going to do kind of heart shape, little blossom here, little petals. I'm doing them all, each one a little different, so it looks a little more organic. Okay, just kind of going around and going to the center, and of course the next step I will close this, and then the next step is to go up to the smooth tool and kind of smooth those little petals around so they're not too pointy looking. The next thing I'll have to do is something for the little eye of the flower. Making these little ellipses. And if you have to move them and you have trouble, you can either go in real close or you can go on the layer palette and you can kind of individually move them around by selecting that particular layer. So right now I'm just kind of moving them around. So that there's no gap in the center. Okay, now I'm looking at them on the layer palette, see? And when I get them to where I like them, then I'll select them all with the black arrow and I'll group them together so that they move as one item. Okay, now they're going to be grouped, and you see on the layer palette they convert it into a group. So there I have that. Then I color the flower. Then I made it a little smaller so it was more in proportion to the little green leaves. Now I'm kind of turning it and rotating it a little. And then I will just copy and paste them and kind of resize them, turn them and rotate them and resize them until I have maybe 3 of them. There. Now at that point I would take my green leaves and color them, and then I would group everything together. You'll see a change on the layer palette. First I'm grouping the flowers, and then I pull the leaves up again, and then I select the flowers and the leaves and I group those. I'm making it smaller now, and I make a copy, and then I lock this layer and I hide this layer and I make a new layer, and I paste it on the new layer, and I'm ready to use the pattern tool at this point. What I'm going to do, I'm in the upper right with that little tile button, and I make some space for myself. You use the black arrow. I use the black arrow to pull it out. Make some space. Black arrow to make sure. Then I select the whole item. Then I rotate it a little. Now this is strictly a subjective thing. I'm rotating it like that. It's kind of on a diagonal. And then I right click and transform, and I rotate it 180 or reflect it. And then I use my right arrow tool on the keyboard, and I move it to one side or the other, and then I kind of move it up a little. I kind of get it so it kind of interlocks and fits in, and it's a kind of a fine tuning so that the spacing looks pretty good in there. Sometimes it's good to get in a little closer, and then you work a little bit on that spacing. See? Kind of push it in. You don't want it to crash, so you don't want them to crash. See? So I'm moving it apart a little bit and watching my spacing. And once you get it where you think you like it, you can adjust the sides and the top. You can pull it in with that little tile tool on the upper left. And then when you think it looks pretty good, you'll save a copy. And then you've got your pattern done. And then you would leave the pattern tool because you're done. You can take your single motif, put it up in the corner, and now you have to pull out your pattern, and you have to make that single repeat. So you're going to have to crop this. Okay, and we're going to put a background on it. So you open it up on the layer palette, find out where that is, and you get that unstroked, unfilled box in the back, and you do Control-C, Control-F twice. And then you move one of those boxes up to the front because that's going to be used for cropping. Then you want to put a color in the background. Okay, once you have your color in, then you have to work on your cropping. Okay, but there is a little problem with this, is all the lines disappeared from the flower. So what you have to do here is you have to back up. See, all the lines disappeared, the strokes. So you back up with Control-Z, and then you go to your layer palette. You lock the front unstroke unfilled box, you lock the back and the color, and then you go to Object, Expand, and you only expand the stroke. And then you unlock the things on the layer palette that you locked, and you crop it. Okay, so now the strokes are there. So then you pull it up to the top. That's your single repeat. I'm looking at the size of it here, but I make an adjustment towards the end of this little video because I did not have this sized correctly. I missed this step, so I will be adjusting this step at the end. I'm adjusting it to fit a specific printing cylinder. So we will get back to that. So right now I'm filling it in with the pattern to test it. There's the pattern. If you need to see more of the pattern in repeat and you want to reduce the pattern, you can easily do that, but you have to state it and write it on there. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a 50% reduction, not the object, but the pattern and the strokes to see what it looks like. There's the 50% reduction, but you have to write down that you're doing a 50% reduction. Okay, because the actual pattern is what you will be marketing or selling, and the actual pattern is twice this size. Okay. So you have your single repeat, your motif, and your in repeat. Next thing you have to do is to put your color chips in. This particular pattern has 5 colors. You would make a little box. In this case I made it a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. Then I right click and go to transform, move, 1/2 inch on the horizontal, 0 on the vertical, and copy. And then I just keep doing Control D so that it keeps happening again. See, I did it again. Control D, Control D, Control D. There's 5 colors here. The background, the leaves, the flower petals, the center of the flower, and the outline. So you would put the different colors in. And once you get the different colors in the chips, then you can group the chips together, Control G, so they move as one. You also should put your height and your width of your single repeat on. And as I said earlier, you should put your Pantone codes. I will have those to illustrate that for you. You take your pen, you hold your shift down, and you make a straight line. Then you go to your stroke palette, and you can put an arrowhead on the beginning of the line and on the end of the line. You can do that for the width, and you can do that for the height. Now I have the codes put in, the Pantone codes. What I'm doing here is I took the in repeat out because I realize I have to set this according to a cylinder. This is the cylinder. I'm using the 25.5 inch cylinder, so I'm going to make it 2.55 high so that the pattern can repeat 10 times vertically around that cylinder. So I have to adjust the height of my repeat so that it fits perfectly on that cylinder. I'm more worried about the height than the width because I don't want a gap on the cylinder. So I have it constrained. I have the lock on. I change the height to 2.55. It's adjusted now. And then I put the new measurement in for the height and the width. So this should have been actually done a few steps ago. So I'm putting the height in now and I'm rotating it. Right click, rotate, transform, rotate, 90, and move it. Okay, now I would drag and drop this new one into the pattern. Swatch, palette, and then I would click on the blue. There's my repeat full size. I would make it a 50% reduction. Okay. Now that's what the layout should look like. In the lower right, you would have your name and copyright, give the year, all rights reserved. Now, how do you save it? Save as. You put the name on it. We have it named Pat Tool and Flower, and then you could put your last name and save it as an AI. And again, when you're in CS6, you save it. If that's all you're working in, save it as a CS6. If you're working in anything lower than a CS6, always save it in the lower version. The lower can go higher, but the higher can't go lower. And that's it. You're done.